Do you want to lose weight but struggle to stay committed to a meal plan because you constantly feel hungry? Does food provide you comfort when you are bored, angry, lonely, or sad? If so, you are in the right place. My name is Kristen Jones, and I'm a life coach specializing in emotional eating and weight loss, and I'm also a lifelong emotional eater. I want to provide you with information, motivation, and support so you too can learn to manage your issues with food and develop a healthy relationship with yourself. Welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. My name is Kristen Jones, and thank you so much for joining me this week. So today we are going to kind of get a little bit back to basics. And I was just welcoming my members from the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community that always join me on Thursday afternoons as I record my podcast live in our Facebook group. If you aren't a member and you want to be a member, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can just go to Facebook and type in Breakthrough Emotional Eating in the search bar and my group will come up. Or you can just directly go to www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough and join the group. But to kind of get back to like the really, really basics of things, the reason we are all here in this group called Breakthrough Emotional Eating, and we are all learning to manage and deal with our dependency and our connection with food and our relationship with food that really, in all honesty, isn't serving us. And it all comes back to a very, very basic thing that all of us as human beings do. And all of us to a certain degree do this. It just is, it just depends on your level of intensity and as well as how much you know about what you need to do to kind of combat it. And that's what we talk about in the group is we talk about how do you combat a relationship, in our case, a relationship with food that isn't working for you. And that's what I teach. And I'm a student right along with everyone as well. And so I'm going to back up a little bit and I'm going to start off by explaining a concept to you that I have, that I think is really, it kind of is the base of any, and I tread lightly on using the word addiction, but any issue that we have that seems to get out of our control. So there is something that exists that's called the motivational triad. And it is what we all as humans do. There are three basic things that as human beings, we all do. And again, it's called the motivational triad. And the three things are, we always seek to avoid pain. We look for pleasure. And we try to do it in the easiest and most time efficient way. We want to save our energy, but we always want to avoid pain and we want to seek pleasure. That is the motivational triad. That is what motivates all of us in anything we do. And when it comes to your use and my use of food, it is the motivational triad is heavily in play. It is absolutely very active and absolutely working at a very, very high level. So when we think about it, and the reason why this motivational triad exists is because it keeps us alive. Because obviously we want to avoid pain. Pain can be something that's going to hurt us. And that could be literally hurt us, or it could be emotionally hurt us. Seeking pleasure is something that, again, as a human species, we want to, the seeking pleasure, the pleasure that I automatically think of when it comes to survival is sex. That is going to be a pleasure that you're going to seek, that we seek to procreate and to continue our species. And that's what our brain is all about. It's about survival. And then we have the last one, which is to conserve energy and to do it as efficiently as possible. And that goes way back to caveman times, when we didn't know when our next meal was going to come. And we didn't know when we were going to kill the next antelope or deer or, zebra, and we were going to have something to eat. So we always needed to do it as quickly and as efficiently, whatever we were going to do, as quickly and efficiently as possible. We still do that today. We still do those mechanisms today. And so when we think about it, how do we avoid pain? How do we avoid pain, and how do we avoid being hurt? Well, people can not go out. They can avoid relationships. They can avoid personal interactions. They can separate themselves from people. They can not do any new experiences. That can absolutely keep us safe. Absolutely keep us safe. So we have those experiences. How do we seek pleasure? Oh, pleasure is all around us. We have pleasure everywhere. We have pleasure with Netflix. We have pleasure with, with food. We have pleasure with alcohol. We have pleasure with shopping, being online, being in Facebook. All of those things, posting something on Instagram and having people like it or comment on it, that gives us that little bit of that dopamine hit that makes us feel like, oh, people like me. And that's that pleasure that we oftentimes seek. And we want it yesterday. We all want everything yesterday. And so what happens is that motivational triad would be fabulous in and of itself if we were living in a cave, if we were cavemen and we didn't have the overabundance of all of this pleasure that we can seek and all these different ways that we can avoid pain as well. And so what do we do when we are overwhelmed with both the pleasure seeking and the avoidance of pain? When we are presented with pain, we can't always avoid pain. And so when pain is presented to us, whether it be through relationships, whether it be through experiences, whether it be through emotions, the easiest and the simplest and the most obvious one is, for those of us here in the group, it's to seek out food. That food makes us feel better. When we have pain, we seek pleasure to make that pain go away. And so it's important when, and what we call that buffering. And buffering is anytime you use anything outside of yourself to dampen, to distance, to avoid that pain. That one part of the motivational triad. We are trying to avoid the pain, and yet we're trying to seek the pleasure at the same time. So food's perfect. It's perfect because it doesn't directly hurt us, not necessarily in that exact moment, but it definitely does the job. It helps us avoid the pain, and it helps us to seek that pleasure. And it does it very quickly and over and over and over and over again. So I really wanted to talk about that and get really back to basics when it comes to why do we have, all of us, why do we have this issue with food? Why is food the drug of choice? Why is food that thing that allows you and me to avoid the pain and to feel some pleasure, and for it to happen really quickly, and it just to feel so safe and so comforting? Now, it's not the same for everybody, and everybody is different, but it is a thought to consider. It is something to think about. What is, because it's not, people want to talk about I hear all the time, oh, well, it just tastes so good. And that's why I wanted, that's why I wanted to keep eating, because it just tasted so good. And that it's not that it tasted so good. It was how it made you feel. It was the feeling of, I don't feel the pain right now. I feel pleasure instead. And it was so easy. And why the heck would I not do that again and again and again and again? So now that you know that that is kind of how that's how, from a very evolutionary standpoint, that is what we as human beings seek. So we seek that avoidance of pain and that pleasure, and we seek it very, very quickly, and we want it very quickly. So how do we go about doing that pattern interrupt? How do we go about not giving into that? And so the first thing you have to kind of realize is, what is the thing when you are in the throes of seeking that pleasure and avoiding that pain? What is so wrong with feeling the pain? What's the pain going to do to you? We have to remember, pain is a sensation, and a sensation or a feeling is only, and I repeat this so many times, it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but it is only a vibration in your body. That is what an emotion is. That's what a feeling is. A feeling is a vibration in your body, and it will not kill you. That feeling alone will not kill you. An action that somebody may take as a result of that feeling, yes, someone can become hurt by that. But the feeling itself is just that. It is just a feeling. And so what I want to encourage, and it sounds so counterintuitive, but I want to encourage anyone who's listening to this, I want you to seek and sit and feel the discomfort. I will give you an example of this. This is an example that happened to me just last week. And I was so shocked that I caught it and that I actually followed through with it. Because I will completely own that I may know all this, but when it's down and dirty and it's in the moment, it is really hard to not say, oh my gosh, I just want to feel better right now. I just don't want to feel the way I'm feeling right now. And I don't care how long I've been in recovery and how long I've been working with this and how long I've been teaching this and I've been working on this myself. It still comes back and it still sits there, and I have to be like, okay, what am I going to do? And I will tell you, so last week, it was last Thursday. So it was a week ago. And I had something happen on Wednesday, and I could not let it go. I just kept thinking about it. It kept bothering me. And I remember waking up Thursday morning, and I have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule on Thursday. And I remember thinking, I think I want to, I had, as a side note, back up a little bit. The previous weekend, I had left something at my parents' house. My parents live 2.5 hours away from me. And I'd left something at my parents' house, and I'd been able to get by without it. But I had left this, it was a bag of things at my parents' house, and I had been able to get by without it. But Thursday morning, I was in the throes of such discomfort, and so did not want to be feeling what I was feeling. I didn't want to be in my own skin. I just was so, and I had reached out to a couple of people, and I hadn't been able to connect with anybody. And all I wanted to do was get away from this feeling. And so for me, it's no longer turning to food. What I wanted to do was I wanted to drive to my parents, and I wanted to pick this bag of stuff up because I knew that it would distract me. I'd be in the car. I don't even think I was going to take Jackson with me. I was going to just go by myself. And I knew in the moment, as soon as I thought it, I'm like, I should drive to my parents. And in that exact moment, I thought, oh, that feels so much better. Like, I will get out of here and I will stop thinking about this thing. And in the next moment, I said to myself, no, that is just you. That's your you don't like this feeling. Like, you want to run away from this feeling. And that's what you're doing. You are trying to escape. And as soon as I said it, I was like, dang it. And I knew I had to call myself out on it. And I knew that that's exactly what I was doing. I was going to get in the car. I was going to drive 2 hours. I was going to waste 4 hours of my day when I didn't have to. I was going to waste 4 hours of my day driving because I didn't want to feel how I was feeling in that moment. And I thought, nope, you got to suck it up. You've got to sit here and you've got to be okay with this. And so I went and I got my journal out and I wrote, and I probably only wrote for maybe 5 minutes, but I just thought, you have got to learn to handle this. Like, you have got to be able to say, I am going to lean in to this discomfort. I am not going to run away from it. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm going to face it head on, and I am going to be okay with it. And even if there's no answers and I don't have an answer, that's okay. But I am not going to buffer in my case, the buffering was getting in the car and driving. That was just like, I had to get away. I had to distance myself. The feeling wasn't going to go away, but I thought my mind was going to be distracted. It used to be food. It's not food anymore. Now it's just, get me out of here. I just want to get away. And so I caught myself in that moment doing that. And I realized, no, you can't. Like, you can't do this. And to be honest, there was the next thought that came in was like, you can't do this to the people in your group. Like, you've got to lean into this, because this is what you tell people, and you've got to do the same thing you tell people. And so I did. And it was not easy. My mind kept going. I called my mom. I talked to her, cried a little bit, but I knew that it was the right thing, because I knew I had to start being okay with leaning into that discomfort and being okay with being uncomfortable. Because if I didn't get it now, and again, there was never a question that I was not going to turn to food. I knew that was not going to happen, but I knew that something else was going to take place. And it might have been listening to a book on tape. It might have been, because again, it doesn't matter what the buffering piece is. It's me avoiding my feelings that were making me uncomfortable. Did I have an answer to it? No, but I certainly needed to not run away from that feeling and just be okay with it. And sure enough, once I made the decision, like, you're not running away from this, you're going to sit with this. And literally, I wrote for 5 minutes and then I was good. And I was like, okay, let's just do this. Let's get back. Let's just get back to what we have to do. And so I share that because I want you all to know that this is an ever evolving process. And it's something that, like I say, I deal with all the time. But it's when you can catch yourself, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I wanting to avoid that pain? And is that pain, to seek that pleasure, that momentary pleasure, is it worth it? And it never is. It never is. It always ends up being something that's just that Band-Aid that we put on. And this is at the most basic level of what we're dealing with in this group and what we're dealing with as emotional eaters. We have to get better and more comfortable with just being with our feelings and being okay and knowing nothing bad's going to happen. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but if you sit with the discomfort, it is not going to be there forever. And if you can allow yourself to just process and feel it out, it will all work itself out. It will all, those feelings, those urges, and then my urge was just to get in the car and get away. And I knew it would pass, and it did. Because I told myself, we're not going to run away this time. We're going to stay here. We're going to ride this out. Because ultimately, for me, I was still going to be there. Even if I got in the car and I got up to my parents' house, I would still, the problem was I was still going to be there. I needed to deal with me. I needed to deal with how I was feeling. So that is, it's really, really important to me that all of you know that is, I mean, again, it takes practice. It takes, just awareness and practice, patience, time, and consistency. Those are the three things. And so as you're moving through your day as an emotional eater and you find yourself wanting to turn to something, wanting to turn to, something to eat, again, to numb, to avoid that pain, know that your body is responding and your brain is responding the way it's meant to, but it's not what's in your best interest. Again, we're not cavemen. We have too many pleasures that are surrounding us that we can seek super quickly. So we have to remember that the discomfort, the pain, it's not going to kill you. You're going to be just fine. And if you remind yourself of that and remind yourself, and each time you do it, you get a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. I saw a question here in the notes here. Let's see. I saw that. What do you do when I have no one to turn to? Yes. So when you don't, and again, I will tell you, Aletha, I didn't either. I had reached out and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I realized that like that's when I got my journal out and I just wrote down how I was feeling. I just wrote there were some other feelings going on too. There were some other thoughts going on. And I realized I just got my journal out. There was no prompt. I just wrote down how I was feeling and I was honest about how I was feeling. And so that is, and that I think is a huge piece of it, is we have to be honest with ourselves about our feelings. And again, a feeling's not going to kill you. It's not going to, but we have to, the most important relationship that each one of us has is with ourselves, and the integrity that we need to have with ourselves, to be honest with ourselves about what we're doing, about what we're feeling. That's super important. When you can own that, like, I mean, and I'll tell you, if I opened up my journal, it's sitting right here. I believe the first line I wrote was, "I'm scared." And that was the first thing I wrote. And then I wrote what I was scared about. And that was it, because that was how I was feeling. And I don't like admitting that I'm scared. I do not. It does not make me comfortable at all. In fact, I feel like a lot of times I just put such a wall up, so I don't want anybody to know that I'm feeling that way. But that's the best gift that I can give myself, is to own how I'm really feeling in a moment. And in that moment, I was scared. And it was okay, because once I owned it and I wrote it down, then again, I only journaled for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden the feeling went away, because I was honest with myself. I wasn't trying to protect. I wasn't trying to pretend that I was feeling something else. I was just honest about it. Let's see. I just want to make sure I get all these questions. Yes, journaling is so, I mean, even if it's just, and journaling is like, write a sentence. It doesn't have to be a big soliloquy or anything like that. Just write your thoughts. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Trying to get away from feelings. We can mentally try to get away from feelings. We can also physically try to get away from feelings. I am a chronic, I'm a recovering runner. Runner in a sense of like, not only like physically a runner, but like I want to get away from feelings. I want to move away from them. I want to like get up and physically move and like drive my car. I used to spend hours and hours in the car just driving around, because it's like I just wanted to drive away from my feelings. I just was hoping I could move away from them. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that the idea of understanding that motivational triad, of understanding why we do seek, it's a very natural, innate innate process that we do as human beings. But we have to remember that the first step is being okay with that discomfort, because the discomfort is what then causes us to seek the pleasure. And then the pleasure has to be instantaneous. And so we just need to always remember, and then when we're not in that desperate place to want to get rid of the pain with the pleasure, we can actually seeking pleasure. There's nothing wrong with having pleasure in your life. Absolutely. But it's when we're doing it out of desperation and out of like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. I need to feel some sort of pleasure. That's when we really start to get into trouble with that, because that's when things start to get out of control. And that's when we're doing things that, again, don't serve us. And again, this could be talking about food. We can talk about alcohol. We can talk about drugs. We can talk about shopping. We can talk about using your credit card. We can talk about, being on Facebook, Netflixing, all the things. Again, it's an escape. It's a way of avoiding and not feeling our feelings. I just had a thought for anyone who is a nighttime eater. When you eat at night, pay attention. What is the pain that you are really trying to avoid? Because there's something there. You're seeking pleasure from food for some reason. And it happens at the same time. And you've trained your brain to do it. And yes, your brain keeps doing it, but you got to figure out what is the pain, because it doesn't happen otherwise. The pain happens, we seek pleasure from it, and we seek it as quickly as possible. And again, it's that triangle, that just never ending triangulation. So think about that. Think about those things. And what is the pain that you're trying to avoid? And whether it's nighttime or whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or whether it's, all day, what is the pain you're trying to avoid and you're trying to buffer with food? Figure out what that is, lean into it, and let yourself feel it, and life will definitely change. All right. I hope this was helpful for everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're a little heavy today, but that's okay. That's okay. We have to be heavy sometimes. Thank you to everyone in the Facebook group who jumped in and shared. For those of you in the Facebook group, and those of you who are going to be joining the Facebook group who are listening to the podcast, we have in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday, we will, on the 29th, we're going to be having a masterclass. I'm going to be doing a masterclass on a little variation of this topic. It's going to be on your desire for food. And it is going to be an eye opener. So your desire for food is going to be the topic of the masterclass. There will be information going out next week. I'll have a registration form for everyone to fill out in the group. And if you're not a member of the group, come on in, get in, and be a part of that, because it's going to be pretty amazing. And it will really change how you look at your ability to be able to have control over foods in your life that you thought you never would have control over. You absolutely do. And I will teach you how to do that. So that is coming up, your desire for food. So we'll have that coming up on the 29th, Wednesday, the 29th of June. All right. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I'll see you all next week. All right. Take care. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. For more information on emotional eating and losing weight, please go to www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough and join the Breakthrough Emotional Eating community. I hope to see you soon.